Brahman Vritasya Papamana.
Narayane Bhagavati. Kathamasitritamati. Shri Parikshit Uvacha. Rajastama Svabhavasya. Brahman Vritasya Papmana. Narayane Bhagavati. Kathamasitritamati.
Shri Parikshit Uvacha. Rajastama Svabhavasya. Brahman Vritasya Papmana. Narayane Bhagavati. Kathamasitritamati.
Shri Parikshit Uvacha. Rajastama Svabhavasya. Brahman Vritasya Papmana. Narayane Bhagavati. Kathamasitritamati.
Shri Parikshit Uvacha. Rajastama Svabhavasya. Brahman Vritasya Papmana. Narayane Bhagavati. Kathamasitritamati.
Shri Parikshit Uvacha. King Parikshit inquired. Raja of the mode of passion. Tamaha and the mode of ignorance. Svabhavasya having a nature. Brahman all learned Brahmana. Vritasya of Vritasura. Papmana who was supposedly sinful. Narayane in Lord Narayana. Bhagavati the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Katham how? Ashit was there. Drita very strong. Mati consciousness. Translation and purport by His Grace Srila Prabhupada. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, O learned Brahmana, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the mode of passion and ignorance. How then could Vritasura have attained such an exalted love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana? Purport. In this material world, everyone is obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. However, unless one conquers these modes and comes to the platform of goodness, there is no chance of one becoming a pure devotee. This is confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Ishantam takatam padam dhananam punya karmanam tidvanda moha nyamukta patante mam prita vrata. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. Since Vritasura was amongst the demons, Maharaj Parikshit wondered how it was possible for him to have become such an exalted devotee. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyanandana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Sindhurevacha Patitana Bhagavibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhatta introduction to the chapter. So again, chapter 14, King Caitranya's lamentation. In the 14th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj asked his spiritual master Sukadeva Goswami how such a demon as Vritrasura could become an exalted devotee. In this connection, the previous life of Vritrasura is discussed. This involves the story of Caitanya and how he was victimized by lamentation because of the death of his son. Among many millions of living entities, the number of human beings is extremely small. And amongst human beings who are actually religious, only some are eager to be liberated from material existence. Among many thousands of people who desire relief from material existence, one is free from the association of unwanted person, or is relieved of material contamination. And among many millions of such liberated persons, one may become a devotee of Lord Narayana. Therefore, such devotees are extremely rare. Since bhakti, devotional service, is not ordinary, Parikshit Maharaj was astonished that an asura could rise to the exalted position of a devotee. Being doubtful, Parikshit Maharaj inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, who then described Vritrasura with reference to his previous birth as Caitanya, the king of Surasena. Caitanya, who had no sons, got an opportunity to meet the great sage Angira. When Angira inquired from the king about his welfare, the king expressed his moroseness, and therefore, by the grace of the great sage, the king's first wife, Caitanya, gave birth to a son, who was the cause of both happiness and lamentation. Upon the birth of this son, the king and all the residents of the palace were very happy. The co-wives of Caitanya, however, were envious, and later they administered poison to the child. Caitanya was overwhelmed by shock at his son's death. Then Narada Muni and Angira went to see him. So the verse again, Sri Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, O learned Brahmana, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the mode of passion and ignorance. How then could Vritrasura have attained such an exalted love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayana? Very, very important question, and a very natural question. Because we just heard about this great demon who actually showed out to be a fantastic devotee, very, very exalted devotee. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking here, how's this? How could this happen? This demon was normally in the lower modes of nature. How would he become such an exalted devotee? Very good question. In several ways. One thing is it's an obvious question. Another thing is it gives Sukadeva Goswami the possibility of continuing speaking. So now we will hear a whole story, a whole new story will unfold, which had not been there in the Bhagavatam if it was not for this one question. Bhagavatam is just question and answers. So whenever Parikshit Maharaj hears something from Sukadeva Goswami, what's this? I can't really understand. Oh, can you please explain this? How does this demon, complete demon, how did he become a devotee? How is that possible? And then Sukadeva Goswami starts explaining this whole beautiful story of Caitanya. So Caitanya, he was an emperor. He was a great, great king, lots of opulence. And once, as we hear here in the introduction, Angira Muni, he came to visit. That's what sages often do. They come and visit. They go to visit everyone actually, but especially people on exalted posts, because they know they have a lot of influence. And the nature of a sage is he wants to influence people, because he actually got something to say. He actually has the solution to all the problems in the world. Every problem without exception. Because we think, wrongly, that material solution is the way, but it's not. It's always a spiritual solution. Always. If you want a permanent resolve or a permanent solution to all the problems in the world, it's a spiritual solution. Krishna says, Uktanam yakyatava samsara maheshwaram suridat sarva bhutanam gyatvam shantim richtati. If you want something, if you want peace, Peace, there's only one way. That understanding Krishna is to enjoy everything. That's the way to attain peace. If you think I can enjoy it independently from Krishna, that's illusion. That's mine. So Angira Muni is coming to Chittaketu and asking Chittaketu, so how are you? Normally that's how when we meet a person, say, oh, how are you? How are you? Long time no see, how are you? How are you doing? And Chittaketu says, I'm not so good. He gives a beautiful analogy. He says, even if a man has he says, even when you're very hungry and thirsty, and somebody comes and offers you a flower girdle and sandal paste, it is not really so satisfying. Right? Better bring in some food. Now today is Caitanya Candra, some of us will be fasting all day, even for water. So if tomorrow morning, it's time to break fast, and somebody comes and says, here's a flower girdle. Thank you very much. Do you have some water? Yeah, here's some sandal paste. Thank you very much. Do you have some water? Here's this, and here's flour. No, bring me some water. I want water. So this is really what we're looking for. So he says, I have all these opulences, but because I have no sun, everything is like null and void. It's not worth anything. I'm suffering. Then Angira Muni, he says, I can help you. I can see that you get a son. And this is quite uncommon from a sage. A sage will normally just sit down and give a lecture. Bhagavatam says, this is what you should do. You should simply give up all your nonsense and surrender to Krishna. Sarva dharma prityaja. This is the essence of everything. You don't need to worry about all this. But Angira Muni sees that the king is conditioned. He's a devotee. But he has conditioning. He has some hesitations in full surrendering. He's compromised. His devotional service is compromised. So he's very intelligent, so he thinks, okay, I'll give him what he asked for. But he warns him, I'll give you a son, but he will be Rashashoka. He will be one who gives pleasure, but he will also give distress. And Chittaketu thinks, great. That distress is always there. Maybe it means he'll have some few problems. That's part of the material world, no problem. Just I get a son, then my life is perfect. So he makes Angira Muni makes a sacrifice to trust, actually. Interesting enough, continuing the story. That he offers some sweet rice, some kheer to trust. And in that oblation, then the power of this kheer becomes so extremely powerful, and he gives it to Chittaketu, and Chittaketu gives it to his foremost wife, Kritadyuti. Kritadyuti, she takes this very, very powerful prasadam and becomes pregnant. A natural process, not by eating kheer, but then the whole act is there and she becomes pregnant. And eventually, of course, she gives child to a beautiful, small little boy. Beautiful boy. Everything is perfect. 5 hands, 5 fingers, and everything is beautiful. Very beautiful little boy. And Chittaketu and his wife, Kritadyuti, is in ecstasy. They have never been so happy in their whole life. They think, now everything is fine. No matter what happened, my life, everything is done. Everything is perfect. Then what happens is that naturally, Chittaketu Maharaj, he gives a little more attention to Kritadyuti. Actually, a lot more attention. He becomes, she was even before, but now she becomes his only showing affection, only showing love to her. And he sort of neglects his other wives. And that's actually part of the story is he had millions of wives. Can you imagine that? Yeah, we use the word millions, so many. But he literally had millions of wives. We can't even maintain one wife. So what does it mean? Imagine to have 3 wives. Difficult. Right? Or 10 wives. Very difficult. Imagine 100 wives, 1,000 wives. You can't imagine a million wives. Impossible. But King Chittaketu, he was so extremely powerful, he could easily maintain 10 million wives and keep them satisfied. See, that's the trick. You might even, if you have a lot of money, you can maintain them. But you need a lot of money, 10 million wives. But to keep them satisfied, that would be even one. It's very difficult. So he was trying to get a child, all of the 10 million wives, or at least whoever he could, all of them he could, as much as he could. He tried to get a child, but he couldn't. And he asked doctors, and there's nothing wrong. Your sin is providence. You will not get a child. But he couldn't accept that. So when this child came and he was extremely happy, he, as I mentioned, he gave more, a little more attention to his foremost wife, duty. And then neglected the other wives. And then they gradually became envious. And they became morose. And then one day they made a plan. All of them came together and made a plan. One of us will go and poison the child. So one day no one else was there, one of the wives went and poisoned the child. So the duties called for the maidservant, please bring my child, he's been sleeping long enough. Please bring him to me now. And the maidservant goes there and sees the eyes up like this. And she says, oh no, I'm doomed. I'm finished. And she falls to the ground and starts crying, yelling. And then of course the wife of Caitanya comes, and Caitanya Candra comes. And when he hears that his child is dead, he can't even stand. He falls to the ground, he faints. And then they start speaking, first to Providence. How can Providence, oh Providence, how can you be so cruel? And then after they discard Providence, they start criticizing God. This is natural when we're in problems and something goes wrong in our life. How can God be so cruel? How can he be so evil that he allows this to happen to me? I'm such a perfect person. How can he allow this to happen to me? So they were saying, even though you can say that it's due to karma, that a child can die before his father. It can be due to karma and some bad karma. But then how will people take care of their children? If they see there's no endurance, if they're not really sure, how they really give compassion and a care to their children, if they know that you can just be taken away like that, and God can just take them away. So that means God, if you exist, you're not really a good God. That's what they're saying. So then, Angkara Muni, he hears about this. He hears this whole thing, the child dies, he knows. And he brings his good friend Narada Muni, and they go together and see the king. And now he starts preaching to the king. So why, this is the question, why did he preach first time? The king was not ready. He was still too compromised. He heard this many times before. What Narada Muni will start preaching now? The king heard it many, many times. We often think, I heard Bhagavatam, I heard I'm not this body. But when we really need to understand, that's when it goes into our heart. Then Krishna is speaking in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. And at one point Arjuna, he falls in a chariot and starts crying. Prabhupada says he starts even crying. Arjuna starts crying. And what is Krishna doing? Smiling. So what kind of God is that? Right? What kind of friend is that? They're best friends. And here this friend is completely broken hearted. Right? He's lying there, he's crying tears in desperation. And we can imagine when we know Arjuna's situation, what a kind of desperation. And then Krishna just smiles. So why does he smile? Because he knows now Arjuna is ready to listen. Now he's ready. If everything is cozy and everything is fine, everything is rosy, then there's no real need to surrender. But everything is certainly taken away from us, and it will be at one point. It's just a matter of time, right? At least at the point of death. But for many of us before. See, we lose our money. Oh, what's happening like this? How can God take away my money? Or we lose our good health. Then we become serious. That's why King Kunti is praying, Janma Aishwarya Shuddha Shripi Idamana Adapana Naivahatya Vedatam Vai Tom Akintyan Gotyan. That one who has a good Janma, one who has a good birth, Janma Aishwarya, one who has lots of opulence, Janma Aishwarya Shuddha, one who has good education, one's very learned. Shrivya, and one was very beautiful. Janmashvara Sutta Shrivya, Idaman Vada Puman, and are intoxicated by this. Naivahadhyavada Tungvai, some, those that do not deserve or they do not have the ability, some akinchana gochanam, to call out for Krishna with their whole heart. So that's only possible if we are conditioned. It's only possible if you understand it's my only hope. As long as we think there's any other hope in existence, we are conditioned, we are compromised. That's why there's a beautiful verse, the four sanas are speaking to Prithu Maharaj. Taparatharananyat kinchit ashtitananyaya. Can't remember the verse. But they say there's only one thing in existence that really hampers bhakti, full surrender. That you think there's something else. You think this will make me happy. My money will protect me. My opulence will protect me. My good birth will protect me. My family will protect me. My country will protect me. My education will protect me, etc. As long as we think anything else is there to protect us, we will always be compromised. Our devotional service will be compromised. But when we come to the real understanding that there's only one person protecting me, also through all these agents, ultimately it's Krishna. Either we think, oh, my money is protecting me, but that's Krishna. Krishna is that quality, the wealth. It's Bhagavan. He's the possessor of all wealth. All wealth comes from him. In all money, gold, everything, and real wealth, bhakti. So everything is coming from Krishna. He's giving it. He's maintaining it. Yogakshemam Mahamyaham. That's why Krishna says, for my ananya bhakti, for my unmotivated devotee. Not unmotivated, that's wrong. But with no other motive, no material motives. My devotee who is completely pure, I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. I take care of them. So in many ways, Krishna takes care of every living entity. The birds, beasts, and especially of the devotee. Samodham sarva bhutatuna ma deshushna priyam. This is, there's no one who's special dear to me, there's no one I hate. But he says, for my devotee, I give special attention. So for the compromised devotee, Kama Mishra Bhakta, one who has still material desires, but there's bhakti. Krishna takes care by first giving knowledge. But if you're not willing to listen with our heart, meaning if you're not willing to change our ways of life, Krishna will use another method. Like he's use another method. Krishna is using another method. As the sage here, Angira Muni, is using the Caitanya Candra. Okay, here you have a child. But I warn you, he will be a source of joy, but it will be very short. And then sugar, then there will suffer. So everything you get in this world is like that. Everything. If you get a great new car, if we are not completely have the full understanding, this is Krishna's mercy, this is Krishna's car, it's not my car. It will give us a little pleasure, and it will give us a lot of suffering. That's the nature of the material world. That's the nature of passion. Because passion is passion to be very very happy for a thing not connected to Krishna. That's just passion. So as long as we like that, it'll be in the beginning it'll be nectar, but then it will turn into poison. That's the nature of it. So here it's very, very open for hearing. So now Narada Muni and Narada Muni is speaking. He's giving a lecture now. And then immediately Caitanya understands. He's in this situation. And then Narada Muni, because he's so extremely powerful, he even calls back the sun. Imagine this. Then when it's really become powerful, then he just calls back the sun. He comes back, he comes to life. He's lying there, the dead body is lying there, and the sun all of a sudden comes to life and starts speaking. And he's speaking high philosophy. Say, this is my parents, but I had so many parents. I had so many parents. Before you, I had so many parents, speaking to his parents. And now I'm left for another destination. So please allow me to go. So then everyone becomes peaceful, everyone understands this is nature. This is how it is. This child, the soul has left the But this is not, the body is not the child. The body is not the person. The person is just now another place. And we are not destined to have a child. Sometimes, like, we have to understand that we can endeavor from here on until eternity, but we will not get them. You see persons, they becoming millionaires, they win in lottery every week. A person in Denmark is winning millions of kroners. You can't really understand that some whole Denmark will be millionaires, right? Every week. And that's just one game. And then others are working their whole life, 3 jobs, and still money they try to accumulate money, but it just disappears. They can't keep them. Because they do not have that kind of karma. They can endeavor from here on until eternity, until they change that karma. So immediately when the karma is changed, so who is the controller of karma? Krishna. So Krishna is the controller of everything. That's why it says when you give the water to the root of the tree, the whole tree is nourished. If you give pleasure to Krishna, we will experience unlimited pleasure. If you give money to Krishna, money will come back actually unlimited. There's even a verse in Bhagavatam like that. You give a donation to a sutra or something, I can't remember exactly. You will not get anything back because he will misuse it. But if you give to a brahmana, you will give it back. If you give it to a very learned brahmana, you will give it so many times back, maybe 10 times back. It's good investment. And if you give it to a Vaishnava, you'll get it unlimited back. Also Krishna, same. Give it to a Vaishnava, give it to Krishna, same. Because a real Vaishnava will just use it for Krishna. So often we think that material things can give us pleasure. It's still a devotees thing, that this will make me happy, this will make me happy. But immediately think like that, we're compromising. We're compromising our devotion. You need to understand there's only one thing that will make me happy, to please Krishna. When Krishna is pleased with me, he gives me unlimited happiness. He takes care of me in all ways. That's the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. Imagine sitting in a huge arena, much bigger than Intrasparken, 10 times bigger than Intrasparken. And it's not, the seats are not of plastic, it's of ivory. There's jewels bedecked handles, or what's it called, armrests. Everything is extremely opulent. All the government